But it wasn't all just Stevie getting metaphysical in the woods. Not only are we spirit, but we're flesh as well. And to that end, I convinced one of the frontierswomen to make a late-night trip to Mound City. And that's not nearly as dirty as it sounds. It's just that voice that I use. Mound City is a 2,000-year-old Hopewell Indian burial mound complex, and it's just right outside of Chillicothe. My little frontierswoman was kind of hesitant at first, you know, worried about her safety, late-night trespassing, all of that. I said, with 3 state prisons right around the national park, we're going to be completely safe. That is a lot of cops. Nothing's going to happen. At the time, my logic was impeccable, and she was with me. So we drive over to Mound City, park right in the parking lot, climb to the top of the highest Indian burial mound. I had a big sage smudge stick with me for purification. We're there, and I'm wondering how to broach the idea that the purification would probably work better if we were both naked. When we see headlights pulling into the parking lot. Quite a few, in fact. This makes my frontierswoman pretty nervous. And I say, don't worry. It's just some local rednecks come to torture the spirits of dead Indians. But she was no longer with me. So we headed back to her pickup truck. If you leave this theater festival with nothing else, leave with this. Not only do they look into prisons, they look out of prisons as well. So we walk up to the parking lot. I'm holding what appears to be a big smoking Bob Marley bomber in my hand. 5 cop cars, a cop van, and 15 members of various Ohio law enforcement organizations. But I was thinking fast. We work at Tecumseh, and we were out here just, I still don't know how I was going to finish that sentence. One of the cops goes, Tecumseh, huh? Well, I'm coming tomorrow night. You better be good. And then, with a brief lecture on loitering around prisons after hours, we hopped in her truck and drove away, and I just burst out laughing because I knew that never again in my entire life would I be able to walk away from 15 cops in 6 cop cars who were professionally interested in what I was doing. Might figure it out by now that I'm sort of infatuated with Indian mounds, and maybe it's a little bit contagious because one off night, we're sitting around, the boys and I, we're chatting. The full moon is casting our backwoods hovels in an eerie light. And the talk turns to the Serpent Mound. And one of the boys says, yeah, I've heard about that place. Kind of always wanted to check it out. Next thing, we're crammed into a car, speeding through the quiet Ohio countryside. We park about 1/4 of a mile away. I mean, I have learned something here. And walk up and tour the Serpent Mound from tail to head, warrior style, stealthy, blending into the shadows, communicating with sign language. We get to the serpent's head and I whisper, because I'm really bad at signing. There it is, a creek at the bottom of this gully over there that we gotta go check out. And we're down in the bottom of the gully. It's pitch black dark. I'm going by feel and saying, the creek's gotta be around here. Splash! One of the warriors finds it head first. This is one of the reasons the Indians lost the war. Next thing, we're back at the serpent's head, the full moon casting a beautiful light over it. One of the boys, who was notorious for for getting naked at the drop of a hat and shall remain nameless, and this is totally to protect the guilty. I hear he's like a pillar of his community now. Strips off all of his clothes and starts dancing on the Serpent Mound. The rest of us look at each other and do the same. Now, it's really not nearly as homoerotic as it sounds. If there is a Shawnee word for cheap, and I'm sure that there is, it was flowing through us that night. After the dance was over, we redressed, drove back to our own little mountain in silence, everybody contemplating the meaning of what had just happened. You know, I'm never going to be rich or famous, unless it's in a Mrs. O'Leary's cow sort of way. But I have lived on the frontier in interesting times, and I have danced naked on the Serpent Mound under the full moon. And in the words of Carl Spackler, you know, I got that going for me. It's just nice. And it is nice. And y'all have been real nice. Thanks for listening.